All right, I'm super excited to talk to you about a new book, or new books, really, two different versions of a new book that I have just published on Amazon. They are available on Amazon. I'll put a link down below. And I'm going to talk to you about what's in the book and how the two books are different aside from the format. As you can see, one is paperback and one is hardback and slightly longer. And I'm also going to talk about their relationship to my other books, one being Wanderings, also available on Amazon, one being my Solo Game Master's Guide, which is temporarily out of stock. Unfortunately, a third printing of it is being done. It's now available in paperback as well. It's been available in paperback. So the cloth edition is the first print run sold out. They did it in paperback. That second printing sold out, and now we're waiting for the third printing. So as of this filming, the best thing to do is to put a notice up if you want to get the paperback edition of the Solo GM Guide off of Amazon or at Modifius. And when it is available, hopefully soon, you will get that. The other book that I have published is A Place Underground. It's kind of like a booklet or a zine. This is no longer in print and available. There is a relationship between this and this that I'm going to talk about. So, first off, what is my new book, Sologeeek Deluxe? This is, as mentioned here, tables and tips to power up your RPG. It's meant to go along with basically my Solo GM guide. They can be used together. It's a supporting document. It's a supporting documents, and it has easy adventure generation ideas, tips for solo character creation, a literary random dungeon table. We're going to talk about that, and other tables about decisions, conflict, events, cities, and more. The contents of this book, we're just going to take a look at this version. It's a little easier to show, is as follows. So we've got my author's note, I'll say, is that basically it's dedicated to the people, to you people watching this video that have really made my solo gaming journey not solo and have contributed so much by way of comments and interaction. And I really do appreciate that. All right, so the first thing we're starting out with is this Solo RPG 123 kind of one-page summary that I've come up with. That's a simple way of remembering the components that are necessary to start a solo RPG session that isn't going to stall. So I talk about the three different elements. You need one of them, you need one of one thing, two of two things, and three of something else. It's kind of like a very basic recipe. And then the tables in this book are meant to help you with some of those elements. And then we move into the first table, the literary dungeon table, and this is, as mentioned, a series of, it is a D66 table that is entries, lengthy entries in some cases, from novels, 18th, 19th century, maybe some 17th century novels that give you a dungeon environment. There is also a D8 table at the beginning that is going to give you different inspirations for how you are taking the material that is describing dungeons and subterranean spaces and placing it into your story. Maybe it's a memory of a past experience or a sample journal entry. So there's a table there that's going to give you 8 different suggestions as to what it could be. And then we move into the dungeon type and what it means table. And that is a table of different settings for your dungeon that you could roll up randomly, because there you're going to have different experience of, a dungeon in a castle versus like a cave system or something like that. So there's a random table for that. I have a table next. I'm calling it Dungeon Stuffing, and that is a way to develop on the fly each room and corridor that you might go into with a different type of detail for it. So each entry, within each main entry, you've got a D4 to roll that gives you 4 different options. So just rolling on that table alone, you can build out an entire dungeon that will have a variety of things in it, like puzzles or treasures or different types of monsters and how they may interact with you. And of course, everything needs a name. So there's a lengthy table that's going to give you, it's a 3D20 table that will give you a random way of creating a dungeon name, like Library of the Holy Spirit or whatever it might be, because of course, what you name something really impacts how you experience it. And then moving on from the dungeons, we get to a table of cities. There are short entries, a D8 table of 8 different cities that are sketched out for you as locales, and they have different flavors and different types of feeling about them that you could locate your dungeon in, you could locate your characters in, you could roll on 2 of them and have your characters traveling from one to the other. And they, each of the paragraphs or a couple of paragraphs about the city is designed to give you some detail so that you have a feeling for what that city could be. And then within cities, we of course have places. So there's a table of different types of places that would be within a city. And so, as we know, lots of different things can happen within cities. And so I created a quote unquote big events table, and it's basically like a backdrop table. Sometimes you need like a backdrop to your action, but you don't necessarily want to do a whole world building thing. But this is a table that has different types of backdrops. And then within each type, you can roll another D6. So there's like 36 different types of big picture events that could be taking place in the background of the city that you could roll up or choose to flesh out your city a little bit more and give it some 3-dimensionality. And then moving on to what becomes the next chapter in the book, chapter 3, characters and their stuff. I have a couple pages here about character creation, including 8 tips for creating a solo character, because solo characters, to enable story to be successful, I think you need to take a little bit of a different approach than you do if you are a player sitting around being led by a GM. So I have my 8 tips for solo character creation, as well as some discussion just in general about the character creation approach. And then that is followed by a series of tables that are designed to support creating characters that have some inherent narrative within them, and that sort of almost come with a little bit of a story. And by that, I don't mean a massive backstory starting with when the character was a kid, but I mean enough of a suggestion that you will have something to hang your narrative on, and that's really like a tent pole onto which you could hang your narrative. So we have a lengthy table of epithets that somebody may be called, and that is going to help you out if you're say Fidget the Gnome, for example, or you have somebody named Fidget the Ashen or Fidget the Conflicted. Those types of things are really going to help shape a character. And as your character comes into view, you may roll on this table and based on that, create your character, or you may even select something that just speaks to you and not roll on the table and have that be the basis for a little bit of a story and narrative attachment to your character. And similarly, we have a table of past jobs that the character has. This is another D66 table where you can roll up what the character used to be before they became an adventurer. And of course, it wouldn't be a Geek Gamer's book if I didn't have a trinkets table. So there's a trinket, an heirloom table that you can roll on that will list what the item is and then kind of give a few words or phrase that will explain what it does. And I suggest at the outset here for character creation, maybe you have 2 rolls or something on this table, and those are things that are represented as being in the character's pocket. The decisions table is one of my favorites here. It's a D8 table, and it's really something you can roll on when you don't know what to do. because if you roll on a table that gives you like a yes/no answer, that kind of binary is not necessarily very helpful. And this is a table that will give you 6 different options of things to do and ways to intervene in your story that is going to help avoid your story grinding to a halt. And it will take the decision making away from you and therefore, force you to have some more creativity if you are feeling stuck. And then we start to move into the fourth section of the book, where I call it Easy Adventure Design. I start out by discussing briefly some basic principles of adventure design with the soloist in mind. And I move on to a really important, almost essentially vital concept about interpersonal relationships in storytelling for role-playing games that's called triangulation. And I haven't written about this before, but it is absolutely vital, I think, to having triangulation play out in your story. And I explain what that is and how it can work. And then I offer a conflict table that's going to support that notion. Because with the proper use of triangulation, you will have a story that is dynamic and that has places to go. And then following that, I have a kind of classic D66 table of venture builders. If you want to just roll on this, you're going to be getting something to do. You're going to be getting a sentence or some phrases about why and how and what you can gain from doing it, and quickly roll up an adventure. And then the next table is called Interrupters. And this is a D6 table, which is you just roll on it when you want to shake something up. Your story's going along. Maybe it's feeling a little repetitive. You're finding yourself going back to like a yes/no roll a lot. So turn to this Interrupters table and you're going to get something suddenly unexpected. And again, what that thing is going to be a suggestion for you, but it'll be taken out of your hands because it will be a random roll, and then you will have to deal with it narratively. And then the next section, the next chapter or table, excuse me, I'm really happy with this one. I'm happy I put it in here. This is numerology. I don't really think that numerology, which is the study of the mystical significance of numbers, is really discussed that much in role-playing. And many oracle systems like tarot do make use of these associations, but I think it kind of gets a bad rap because of mysticism and trying to like see into the future, and maybe it's not the vibe that role players want. But it's really interesting, and there's just thousands of years of history of numerology. So what I've done is boil down for the numbers between 0 and 9, the kind of from across the globe and over many different eras, some of the more popular associative values of those numbers. And you could always turn to this table, which covers a couple of different pages, roll a die, roll a couple of dice, and see what those numbers just represent. And there's there's an example at the end showing how it could be used. So the example is like of a party arriving somewhere new, and it's a city, and I want to develop some themes about the city. So I grab some random dice, a D6, a D8, a D20, and I roll them, and I show how you can interpret the numbers that you get from those rolls into some narrative prompts, and then from those prompts, develop a story about your city. What's great about numerology, and maybe I'll give an example of this in a different video, is that we have the numbers all the time in the dice, but I don't really think people use them that way and aren't really familiar with the associations of the numbers. So I'm really happy with this particular table, and I hope that people get a lot of use out of it. And then, of course, my tried and true percentile table. This is one that has appeared in my solo GM guide. It's a very basic 0 to 100 percentile table. I think truly it could be the only table you actually need to do solo RPG. So I had to put it in there. And then my interrogative table, which is based on one of the best dice in my collection. That's a 6-sider. And on each side of it, it has the questions, who, what, where, when, why, and how. And I just wrote that up in a table for you. So you could roll a die and just get one of those words, and you could do that at any time. Perhaps you're looking for a new narrative direction and you roll a 3 and you get where, you know that you are then going to be developing like a new place. Whereas if you rolled up a 6, perhaps you might be focusing on the how of you getting to that new place. So those are the tables that are in the Sologeeek paperback book. And all of those tables are also in Sologeeek Deluxe, with the addition, as mentioned, of the table that is the environmental table, the literary environmental table that is coming from the Wanderings book. So the hardback also has that. If you don't have Wanderings, or if you just want Wanderings in a hardback format, that is what this table is. And that represents everything that is in the book, with the exception of the last page, which is about geek gamers. That's me, myself. And I am talking about, you can just take a screenshot here if you want to see this, but I'm talking about the fact that I've basically spent my professional career devoted to stories and narrative and writing. And my solo RPG work is just a different way of doing the same kind of thing, of participating in helping people create stories and interact with narrative, because that's really what I love to do. And I do say again that this deluxe edition includes the full text of Geek Gamer's book, Wanderings. Otherwise, it is new material, supporting material, and designed to work perfectly well with the Solo GM guide, all together to give you an easy road into doing solo work.